Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another live stream. Our guest tonight is State Representative Barbara Dittrich. How are you doing?
Excellent.
Well, it's good to see you. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, thanks to all the viewers who have tuned in already, and I'm sure more people will join as we go forward in the conversation. Uh, State Representative Barbara Dittrich, member of the Wisconsin State Assembly. She was first elected to the state legislature in 2018. Barbara attended the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. She worked in the investment industry for many years and also served in the nonprofit sector. And in the state legislature, Barbara's priorities include keeping property taxes low. I absolutely support that.
Mhm.
And job opportunities high. She is also working to combat government waste, improve access to good mental health care services, protect life, and ensure an overall sound environment for strong families. And Barbara and her husband Steve reside in Oconomowoc. So, welcome, Barbara.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with, my first question is tell us more about your background. Obviously, I gave the viewers a quick overview, but tell us more about your background and how you got involved in politics.
If you want to go way back, I could take you to my kitchen table growing up where we talked about any and every
But
issue at the table. And
okay.
it's kind of funny because looking back now, I can see like my father was conservative and my mother was probably not. Although she did become a Republican in the end. Um, I wasn't too engaged in politics until I really met my husband. He was a small business owner here in Oconomowoc, and he was very engaged in what was going on in the state and the country because it affected him as a small business owner. And so that's when I really started to get more aware and involved. And obviously, being in the investment industry, you know, politics affects our economy. So that very much I was involved with. It got me engaged too. Um, but beyond that, our second child was born with a severe chronic illness, and so going beyond county party politics, I was asked to join the establishment of a basically legislative advocacy committee for people with this diagnosis. And I got comfortable moving around that space, talking to legislators both in the state and
Mhm.
federally. And so when Representative Joel Clayfish decided not to run, he and his wonderful wife Rebecca tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, we really think you'd be good at this. You should throw your hat in the ring." And as I tell people, the rest is history.
Yeah.
So this is the first elected office I have ever held, but I've been engaged in both county politics and legislative advocacy for decades.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And
Hmm.
I remember I met you when you were running for the first time. I
Hmm.
think it was
Hmm.
2017, right? 2017 or
2018.
2018.
Yeah. Hmm.
2018, right. Um, I mean, it's amazing how time flies. And here we are,
It
2024.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us more about the district you represent. And I know that the lines are changing, and I'm going to ask you questions about that. So tell us about the district you now have and the district that you're going to have next year.
Sure. So um, originally, my district ran from, I live in Oconomowoc. My district ran just a little bit east of Oconomowoc and then all the way along either side of the I-94 corridor through Jefferson County and into eastern Dane County. Um, so that's why you and I were seeing each other more and more because I would be at Dane County Republican events. And now with these new maps, I only go as far as one town into Jefferson County.
Okay.
I push further east into Waukesha County, which includes Village of Heartland, Shaniqua, Town of Merton. And then I push north now into Dodge County
Okay.
and have smaller municipalities up there in Dodge County north of me. So it's it's an interesting district, especially, you know, when you're leaving so much of it behind. And I tell people my old district was divided into three pieces, and I basically have the eastern flank of it. So
Okay. So it's changed quite a bit. So you're obviously out and about meeting a lot of new people.
yeah, I would say about 53% of my new district is I've served at one point in time.
Okay.
So the remainder, I need to get to know me, and that can be really challenging.
Yeah.
Especially I'm somebody like who likes to serve people the way I like to be served, and I like to get face to face with people and
Mhm.
be engaged in community events because I think your legislators should be approachable and accessible. And but I'll tell you, there's limited time to get to them all before election day. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask you about the redistricting process.
mhm.
Your thoughts. I read a lot about it. I've talked to other state legislators, and I've heard their thoughts. So tell, give us your experience, throughout this whole process, how the conversation started, what the Democrats wanted, what the Republicans wanted, what happened, and where we are now.
Well, it was frustrating. I guess is the word I would use because it was settled. I will tell you. So I came in 2018. This is now the third iteration of my district here in Wisconsin. Um, that I've had since first um, being elected in 2018, um, and that's quite the change for 6 years.
Yeah.
So first was the 2018, then we took the census in 2020, um, and then we voted on the maps in 2021 as we came in, and they went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court and were found valid. And I will tell you, my 2021 district was very similar to my 2018 district.
Mhm.
But we had the court battles over um, these district maps in Wisconsin. So, um, as I said, they went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, were found to be legal and valid. And then a funny thing happened to the Wisconsin State Supreme Court,
Yeah.
and that is that the majority flipped. And, it was a concern we had when that seat was up, what would happen. And sadly, our worst fears came true.
Yeah.
And basically, the liberals invented out of whole cloth a reason to find our maps illegal based on municipal islands, which they're everywhere because towns don't get drawn in just straight squares or rectangles, or excuse me, districts don't. So, and municipalities don't. Um, so that was really a stretch, but they used it and they overturned the maps. And then there was this big opportunity for people to submit what they thought were the best maps. And, the cards were stacked against us in the Republican majority legislature. They really were. And when the state Supreme Court brought in these two experts from California who were going to draw the maps,
From
completely not,
California.
yeah, and not constitutional in the least. There's nowhere in our state constitution that calls for that. But again, when you have a liberal majority court that has no respect for the law as written, they can and will do whatever they want. And so the handwriting was kind of on the wall. And so we explored the option of, again, taking this to the court, but basically discovered that since they were using it on a state issue, the municipal islands, our chances of having the US Supreme Court take this up again were slim to none, especially if they had already taken it up once.
Okay.
So, reluctantly, we voted for, the least worst option. We didn't have any good options.
Mm,
And our least worst option was to vote for the governor's maps. And I have gotten a little pushback from people on that, going, why would you do that? I'm like, it was our least worst option.
right.
And I tell people, but we know we did the right thing because not one Democrat voted for it. Not one.
Wow. So they so they
So
so they
they
didn't
were
they
really
didn't vote they didn't vote for the Democrat governor's maps.
correct. And I think they were really betting on having these California experts draw the maps. And really, then it was a matter of, once we passed the governor's maps, holding our breath and going, is he going to sign his own maps?
Mm,
And so all of a sudden, he um, was the one who was painted into a corner, because, how would that look if he vetoed his own maps?
right.
So here we are. This is what we've got. It's hard. We have a lot more pairings on our side of the aisle.
Yeah.
Um, so it's difficult. And I would not call these fair maps. Um, but it was our least worst option at the time.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
Very frustrating. So long
I
answer
know.
to the question, but very
I know.
frustrating.
I know. And I know we can never predict what's coming, what's in the future. Elections are hard to predict. But let me ask you, are you confident that we're going to be able to have a decent majority in the assembly? We've had a majority in the assembly, the Republicans, for many years. Are we going to be able to hold on to that majority, you think?
We are really fighting to do it. We're working extremely hard to do it. I will tell you that there were some unforced primaries that are going on. My primary would be one of them. And if Republicans don't stop the infighting, the party that unifies first is the party that wins. And I know Senator Johnson has said that since the day I first started campaigning with him, was we have to be unified. And so if we can get beyond some of these nasty primaries and unify, just like Donald Trump said at the RNC, then I think we have a good shot. Um, the assembly is definitely more secure than our Senate. So,
Okay. And I'm going to ask you the next question. Tell us about your experience in the state legislature so far. You've been there a few terms now. And I
mhm.
see that in the chat window, Rebecca Witherspoon is asking, what do you find the biggest challenge facing the legislature for your next term? So I'm going to put the two questions together and
Hmm,
let you answer.
our biggest challenge.
And just your experience in general so far.
Yeah. So it's been a good experience. I will say, eh, because I know some others who are having first time runs, and I'm like, wait, how you think it's going to be versus how it is once you get in are two very different things. Very different things. And I say that because you come in with guns ablazing, thinking, this is my opinion, this is what we're going to do, and you learn that you only win as a team. So nobody gets their way all the time, and you have to figure out. I tell people, you have to figure out what your hills to die on are. Everything can't be um, my way or the highway. Otherwise, nobody will get on your bills and work with you on legislation. Um, And that's problematic. So teamwork is required. I guess I never knew that or expected that coming in, but you learn that very quickly. Our biggest hurdles right now, well, what's really interesting is last session we tried 3 times to give the good people of Wisconsin their money back
Mm,
with the budget surplus. And our governor told us he wanted a middle class income tax cut. And no matter how we went about it, we tried 3 different iterations and really tried to come to a consensus with him. And he vetoed all 3 times. So he's to me, to my mind, I'm like, he's sitting on that money thinking he can flip the legislature and then just spend it all. Um, which is, probably jaded thinking, but that's what concerns me.
mm,
And so getting the taxpayers their money back, although I am hearing now that our revenues are down in this economy, and why
mm.
wouldn't it be? And so that that's um, our economy definitely has a ripple effect to the state level here in Wisconsin, in every state. Um, Additionally, we still have to get to things that are uh, really a trial here in Wisconsin. There is not one place I can go, a school, a manufacturing plant, a grocery store where lack of workers isn't an issue. And so that's a huge issue we're going to have to confront next session, what we're going to do to, help in that regard. We've been trying, but it's challenging, especially with a dropping birth rate. Um, so just making Wisconsin, and this was my motivation in first running, making Wisconsin a great place to work, live, and raise a family. Um, that's the bottom line, and we still got to get at it. Of course, voter integrity continues to be a big issue on our side of the
Absolutely.
aisle. And when you have split government, that makes it even more challenging. And as you've seen, we've had to send some of these things that we couldn't get passed because the governor would not cooperate with it. Um, we've had to send them as actual constitutional amendments to go around him. So at least we got the Zuckerbucks banned.
Yeah.
That was good. In November, there will be a citizenship uh, question on the ballot, so that will be helpful. Um, and right now, on August 13th, we have the constitutional amendment question regarding authority over federal funds that come into the state.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the questions that are on the ballot on August 13th.
I will do that. I've had plenty of the questions from constituents on that.
Yeah.
So interestingly, the power of the purse is given to the legislative branch of government, um, both on the state and federal level.
Right.
Sometime back in the 1930s, the Wisconsin state legislature gave away its authority over federal funds that come into the state. If I were guessing, and I'm totally guessing, it, you know, it was it because of the depression, and they felt like they needed those emergency funds quickly, or what? Fast forward to the COVID era, and the state of Wisconsin got over $4 billion with a B in COVID relief funds. One person and one person alone had oversight and authority over that money. So I can't even thoroughly and transparently report to you how your tax dollars that came in the form of COVID relief funds um, were spent in Wisconsin. And I'm told the governor is sitting on like $1 billion right now. And some of the ways that they have found the money was spent was not COVID relief. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Um, And I basically tell people when I'm knocking on doors, which I'm doing a lot of these days,
Right.
I don't care if you have a D or an R after your name. No single governor should have that sort of authority over such a large amount of money. It should be handled the way your budget is handled. It should go through the process where the legislature decides how it's going to be spent, and then the governor has feedback on it.
So,
So,
like, is there no reporting requirement? Isn't there anything that, like, okay, the governor has to disclose how the money is being spent, the executive branch has to provide a report?
on a very small portion of it to the federal government, but otherwise, nope.
Not to,
I mean, it's really shocking. So voting yes for question 1 and question 2
okay.
on August 13th, or if you vote early, can vote early now in Wisconsin.
Hmm.
That will fully restore that power of the purse to the legislature as it should be.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of your accomplishments? You highlighted the importance of teamwork and obviously finding common ground, especially given that we don't have a Republican governor. It's even more challenging to work on some of those common sense policies because we know that Democrats would often object to some of the common sense policies that we have. So
Yes,
so
and not to get on a rabbit trail, but I'll just get this out of the way. One of my bills, well, two bills that I worked on that I was not cooperative, because this was a hill to die on for me, was I am the author of the women in sports legislation in Wisconsin and protecting women in sports. And i- you would think that would be common sense. I think most women would not want a fully intact naked male in their daughter's locker room or competing against them on a team. But the governor proudly vetoed that bill of mine with great fanfare this year, and that's okay. I mean, I really raised awareness because people didn't even believe when I first introduced this. I've had it run for 2 sessions now, and I was told, "Oh, you're just creating a solution in search of a problem. That doesn't happen in Wisconsin." Well, you're in Dane County, Tulsa, if you know what happened in Sun Prairie. Um, that situation with a young male in a girl's locker room. So, that was one of the ones that I wasn't so cooperative on, or we didn't have
yeah,
that cooperation.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, and another yeah.
talking accomplishments, things I have been able to get done. Well, first of all, I had the great honor, my first term, of chairing the Speaker's Task Force on Adoption. Um, that was extremely enlightening, and we went all over the state to
Hmm.
talk about people with that. And I would like to see more legislation come out of that. I will tell you, though, the powers that be really like the status quo. Department of Children and Families really likes the way things are in Wisconsin, and that's troubling to me because I think children need to get into permanency more quickly in our state. That concerns me. Um, that being said, it was an honor to me because I'm pro-life, and it was the opportunity to tell people, to show people we're not just pro-birth on our side of the aisle. We really do want to care for people. So that was um, one accomplishment I really enjoyed. I
Hmm.
had a bill signed into law expanding youth apprenticeships to include more career clusters, because again, workforce is big issue to me. My 3 children are young adults, and so I want them, uh, staying here in Wisconsin to work and raise a family. I got a bill signed into law called, um, Oh my goodness, I'm having a total blank right now.
That's okay.
On a live feed. Um, at any rate, it would allow it protects victims of assault and
Okay.
Kaylee's law. There you go. Kaylee's law pr- protects assault victims so that they can appeal for a lifetime restraining order against their assailants. Most people didn't
Okay.
know that restraining orders have a limited life on them. Um, I also was very happy to get a grant program signed into law this session to help fund recovery high schools in our state,
Okay.
which can really help. Substance abuse is a huge problem,
That is a
as it
huge
is.
problem.
Yeah, and if we can get these kids earlier and get them out of their environment they're in and to a recovery high school, um, fabulous opportunity to intervene earlier.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those. I mean, those are
Sure.
some really important issues that you worked on. Protecting children, workforce issues, and protecting victims.
Hmm.
So thanks for sharing that. And so, what are some of your future priorities? As you're looking at next year, what would you
That's
like
a
to do?
great question. Of course, we always, try to give another swing at things we didn't get over the finish line. There's a loophole in our doctor sexual assault laws that we really need to repair because it's
Okay.
based on where the assault occurs, and that cannot be. Um, and that's a bipartisan bill.
Okay.
So I really hope to reintroduce that. I'm definitely support victims. Um, Definitely want to work more on mental health issues
Mm-hmm.
again. We already had trouble before COVID-19 hit, and now it's like snowballed out of control. And so we really need to help people get in a better position with mental health care.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
children suffered greatly because of the lockdowns and the shutdowns and all the mask mandates. Especially, I mean, in Dane County, it was a nightmare.
oh yes, definitely, definitely. So those are just a couple of the things I want to work on. I am also, just we just keep talking to people about ideas continually on how to improve things, and I hope to remain the chair of the state assembly committee on insurance because having a financial background, I sold insurance products, and having a now adult child with health problems, I have a good knowledge from that side. So I
Yeah.
think it puts me in a really unique and pragmatic position to lead Wisconsin's committee on that, and I hope to lead again next session.
Yeah. I want to ask you about. I was going through your legislative history and the committees that you're on, and I saw that you are a member of the Speaker's Task Force on Human Trafficking. Would you tell us more about that?
Yes, gladly. It's kind of interesting. The Sound of Freedom movie was a big explosive hit, especially for conservative people. And I will tell you that's not how it usually happens. Um, Really going around the state, and here's the difficulty: so much is underreported. Um, I was shocked to learn a lot of people are trafficked by their own family members,
Yeah.
or a boyfriend.
Mhm.
Um, it just is shocking. But what is really neat is Wisconsin has some great nonprofits really working to um, get these victims of human trafficking whole and healed. the task force basically focused on sexual exploitation. I will tell you there's labor exploitation too. And because of the limited time you have as a task force like that, we didn't even get to the labor piece of it. Um, but I will tell you, I think that our problems with our southern border in the US
Yeah.
definitely make people more vulnerable to trafficking, both in labor and sexually. Um, I will tell you when Joe Biden got sworn in and flung open the U.S. Mexican border as he did, I was laughed at by some of my detractors by saying, this is a 50 state problem. And we had legislators that went down there early to like um, El Paso and whatnot, seeing these crossings. And what the people who are on the other side of the aisle don't seem to grasp is that it's dangerous for the people crossing. They are
Exactly.
being they are being trafficked. They are being trafficked because they have to pay that coyote back at some point in time. That's why they all have these colored wristbands and whatnot. Um, at any rate, there's a problem. Um, Wisconsin, Milwaukee was known as a huge human trafficking hub long before the border problems existed. So it's an enormous difficulty, and we will have more work to do on that because we just really got to the tip of the iceberg with the legislation we had this time around.
Yeah. And we talked for a long time about all the damage done because of the open border policy in the
Oh,
last
yes.
3 or so years, more than 3 years. It is shocking. It's unbelievable, and as you said, it's affecting all the states. It's not just a border state issue. Um, so hopefully, in the future, the committee can do more work, and I'd be
Yes.
curious to know. Okay.
Well, I will tell you from me chairing the adoption task force, those things continue. The momentum continues long after the task force concludes. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, as you are traveling, as you're campaigning in the district, as you're meeting people, what are some of the top concerns you are hearing from the voters? I probably know what the top issues
mm,
are, inflation being one, but what are some of the issues you are hearing in the district?
definitely the economy,
Yeah.
and I will tell you, it's even something as simple as, do you know what they get for a jar of mayonnaise right now? It's crazy, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Which I will tell you is the delight of meeting face to face with constituents, is that you're having those real life and down to earth conversations
Yeah.
together. So yes, the economy is definitely a concern. The border is definitely a concern. Um, there is continues to be concern over elections and their security and their basic integrity. um,
Exactly.
yeah, there really does. And education, I will tell you, it's kind of shocked me. You're in Dane County there in Madison. The number of people in my district who have mentioned Milwaukee Public Schools and the debacle that they have going, um, with not knowing where their dollars went. And yet I have to tell my constituents, you get less money per student than the city of Milwaukee does, yet you are turning out kids that can read, write, and do math. And Milwaukee can't account for the money and they can't educate the kids. So I've actually been shocked at how much um, people have mentioned that out out here in, what I would consider a distant, suburb of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are a few of the things.
It's unbelievable how Milwaukee, the school district, can get to that point. You know, when you have something and things are heading in the wrong direction, you get those early indications. How does MPS get to that point? Where it's just, but I don't know.
I I agree with you, but what I will say, and I'm vice chair of the Assembly Committee on Education.
Okay.
What breaks my heart is that, to me, those kids have every opportunity like the rest of us, but that is stolen away from them by these people running that district, and it's unconscionable. Those kids are entitled to a good education, and the funds are there to give them a good education. And why it's not happening, those children and their families are the ones that suffer. And can you tell it really gets my Irish up? it,
Yeah. Yeah.
it really gets me going because it just should not be.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to say something about school choice? Because we're on that topic.
Well, yeah, I am a supporter of school choice, but I will tell you, um, universally, I actually have a history. I've had kids in private school, I've homeschooled, and they graduated from public school.
Okay.
So I tell people one size does not fit all. And
Exactly.
so parents need to have these options. And certainly the Milwaukee parents should have options when their kid is not getting educated as they should be. And it's sad because you get a city like Milwaukee and it ruins it for the rest of the state. Then I have um, other communities that are really doing their level best to educate. Like, why 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 can't we get more in the way of funding? So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Not too much of a distance, as you said. Where you are in Milwaukee, and you've got in your district, as you said, less dollars but better outcomes, while Milwaukee has more dollars and far worse outcomes. So yeah,
Yes.
um, yeah, I'm gonna follow those news updates, and I'd be curious to know what MPS does, because I have heard about it. I think, like you said, it's a Milwaukee issue, but I think people in other parts of the state are also talking about it because they read about it, and they wonder how their dollars are being used.
Well, yes, and listen, people don't stay in one place anymore. We're long past the days where you were born and died, in the same city. People are move around. So, I mean, what are we exporting with kids that can't, just accomplish basic functions? I mean, I would say that it adds to the crime problem there.
Yeah,
These poor kids have a pretty hopeless future if that's what Milwaukee is offering them.
yeah,
So we need to work together to get things back on track.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, so next question. We've already talked a little bit about the Supreme Court, with the liberal majority and the redistricting. My next question is the absentee ballot drop boxes. That Supreme Court ruling to allow absentee ballot drop boxes. Your thoughts on? I have lots of thoughts on this issue, but
Oh,
I'm
I'm sure you do, as
I'm gonna.
do I.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, you can vote early in person, you can vote by mail, you can vote on the day of the election in person. Why do you need absentee ballot drop boxes? And so I'll stop. I'll let you share your thoughts.
W- when we do stuff like this, we're like the laughing stock of the world. That's what I think. I mean, it makes us look like a banana republic. It's and there's nowhere where it says that that is constitutional. There is no provision for that. And it just lends itself to trouble and fraud. And here we go. It's because of the liberal court. And listen, I will tell you, I give a lot of credit to Scott Krug, Representative Krug, who actually is the chair of the Campaigns and Elections Committee in the Assembly, and Senator Dan Knodel, who it's not going to get passed. It's not going to get anywhere before the elections. But their bill said that there should be cameras and monitoring on those drop boxes if you're going to have them. To just have them anywhere, any place, unsupervised is a disaster. So, yeah, it is frustrating.
Yeah. And
And
it's,
I'm trying to be polite.
I no, I
Because I could
understand it.
say a lot more. I could say a lot more too. I would tell you, other countries, there's one day, one election day. Okay, everybody, take off of work, go vote. And if you're military or infirmed, I can see the exception, but this is ridiculous. So, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say this about drop boxes, but I would say I really encourage people on our side of the aisle to early vote and bank their votes, because
Absolutely.
we've got to get every voter out and motivate people, excuse me, just like the other side does.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is never going to get better.
Yeah. No, I think early voting is a good idea, uh, because there are so many uncertainties in life. Something could happen on the day of the election, and if you get stuck at work, or if whatever, some other emergency, then you miss voting. And in November here in Wisconsin, it may be a beautiful day, or we could have some weather emergency. You never know. So it's good
You
to vote
bet.
early. Yeah.
You bet. I will tell you, I'm talking to a lot of people in the primary and encouraging them to go early vote now if they want, because people are like, "Oh, I'm going to be on vacation. Oh, I'm going to be on a business trip." I'm like, "Well, guess what? You can go right to your town hall or your village hall or your city hall and vote right now."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
Absolutely.
can. So that knowing that they can go to their clerk and do it, that makes them definitely feel more secure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me ask you about your campaign.
Mhm.
You have a primary,
Mhm.
right? So, share your thoughts on that. You mentioned already the need to unify. But tell us more about your campaign, and in particular, what kind of events are you doing? Um, you know, we're in August almost. June is a big month, obviously, with dairy breakfasts, and there are so many events throughout the year. So, what are some of the things you're going to, and just share with us about your campaign?
Well, I will tell you that my husband is very much looking forward to me not being campaigning anymore. I only have my primary.
Yeah,
No one is running against me in the general. There was a Democrat who was going to run, but he never turned in any nomination papers. So um, I've been to a good number of events, and part of the reason my husband is so eager for me to get away for vacation is he's like, "Barb, you don't say no enough." But again, I like to be out in the communities I serve because I want people to be able to come up to me and say, "Hey, I have a question for you," or "I have an idea for you," or why are things this way?" Um, so yeah, I try to do it all. I get out to, local little outdoor concerts and beer gardens and all sorts of things. Lot of that is behind me in the dairy breakfast, but I will tell you, I have this weekend. Um, the Young Republicans are going to be having a Young Republicans night at the Dock Hounds Wisconsin Brewing Baseball Park here in Oconomowoc, just right off of I-94 and Highway 67. I will be throwing out the first pitch.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
it's these smaller leagues are really fun games, and so we'll be having that. And our special surprise guest, who has decided to join us at the last minute, is Eric Hovde.
Oh, great.
So I'm very excited to have him there as well. There is a kickoff. This will really bring a smile to your face. Out here on Okachi Lake, which is also in my district, on Sunday will be the kickoff of the first Trump Boat Parade.
That's
So
awesome.
I did one in 2020, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun. It was just fun to see how everybody's boats were decorated,
Yeah.
and just really build the excitement. So those are some of the things that are coming up.
So this is on
Um,
Sunday.
yes, yes,
That's
yes.
awesome. That's
Yes.
wonderful. Now
And
you
I'm
mentioned,
sure after that one there will be more, because there
yeah,
were last time.
yeah, there will be more, I'm sure. So you mentioned the name of Eric Hovde, which is,
Hmm.
great, because my next question is about the U.S. Senate race in Wisconsin. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, Tammy Baldwin has been there for a while. Um, we couldn't defeat her in 2018. I'm feeling optimistic. I know Eric Hovde is working hard. He's campaigning. He's got a great team. What are your thoughts? Can we defeat Tammy Baldwin? Can Eric Hovde be the
I
next
think he
U.S. senator?
I think he can do it. I think he can do it. But that takes all of us showing up, right? Um,
Exactly.
Again, you can't sit this one out. I think he is running a much better campaign than the last time he ran for that seat, but he's they've he being the major candidate, I think, has been much more beneficial than the last time he ran for that seat. I think he's running a good campaign. If you haven't done it, go to iHeartRadio and listen to Dan O'Donnell's interview of Eric, because he did, I want to say, an hour with Eric where he didn't let him
Okay.
talk about any politics. Just it was just getting to know Eric Hovde, and I will tell you, he is an inspirational human being. I mean, a really neat, decent human being. So I've been at a number of events with him, and the crowds, like, people are turning up to events that he's at. So that also makes me optimistic. One criticism I have heard is that people really want him after the primaries to take the gloves off and, like, really go at Tammy Baldwin, because she does have a lot of faults. First of all, what in the world has she ever gotten done in the Senate? I wouldn't say she is a leader in any way. She pretty much is just there for a guaranteed Democrat vote. Um, she's, the whole VA scandal just, it really has hung around her neck, and it's easy for people to forget that. And I think it's worth mentioning again. Um, and, her terrible problem with staff. Um, but she really is a do nothing senator. And Wisconsin deserves a senator that is going to work for the people. So I think Eric just needs to keep on keeping on, and just keep on showing up as he does, and really not be afraid to go after those points where she is incredibly weak.
Yeah. And the larger picture, we have to regain the majority in the US Senate. And for that,
Oh
we have to
yes.
win this Wisconsin race, the US Senate race in Wisconsin. And I'm really hoping we regain the majority in the Senate. I think there are
Yes.
a few other races in other parts of the country that we can win. West Virginia, I'm thinking of. So I'm hoping we get a nice majority in the Senate. We'll have to wait and see. But I feel optimistic about the U.S. Senate race here. But it's going to be a busy couple of months for
Oh,
Eric Husby
yes.
and for everyone else. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, what are your thoughts about the presidential race? Can Trump win Wisconsin like he did in 2016?
I think he can. And it's very interesting, isn't it? Seeing this. I always tell my husband, whatever Democrats accuse you of is what they're actually doing. I mean, they all scream on that side of the aisle, um, "Oh, Trump's going to ruin democracy," as they, disenfranchise the tens of thousands of voters who voted for Joe Biden to be their candidate. It just is like stunning to me. Um, so, I think people do realize that Kamala, while the other side may be like, yay, we're excited. Finally, we don't have to worry about, old Joe. Um, I think that they realize that those policies are the same. The person's just different. And she's culpable for a lot of the things that Joe Biden has done because they did them as a team. And so I think Trump just needs to keep on keeping on. And I think he's shown great restraint and a little bit more statesmanship this election, which is good. People like that. And just keep talking the issues.
Yeah.
Um, and that can bring him a win.
He had such an amazing speech at the RNC.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, completely presidential. I mean, he's always presidential, but I
Yeah.
mean, that was such a great speech. It really united people, I think.
Yeah. And again, that is what we need on this side of the aisle. We need to stop the infighting and unify and get this done because this country can't take another 4 years like we've had.
Yeah.
It just we won't survive.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned a good point for the Democratic side. They talk about democracy, um, but it's like, okay, none of your primary voters voted for Kamala Harris. So where is the competition? Where are the candidate forums? Where are the debates?
Yeah. Well, and you never know how much of what you hear is actually what happened, but there's some stories out there that Obama was angry that they just are like, oh yeah, we're coronating her as our next candidate because I think he wanted an open primary during their DNC. But again, they really try to keep that under wraps because listen, they have been a hot mess, and this is kind of goes to that unity point. Um, Usually they walk in lockstep. Well, Joe Biden sure divided them, didn't he? And so they didn't want any more. I think they didn't want any more divisiveness at that, convention. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll have some good stories from their convention because I will tell you, I think the RNC was better than I ever could have imagined. It was so positive. It was great.
Yeah, yeah, it was, and I feel like we're truly unified now. We are. So, you know, this really is going to be the most important election. I mean, there's so much at stake. I mean, um, the choices. Are you going to vote for common sense? Are you going to vote for fiscal responsibility, transparency, and accountability in government, less regulations, more freedom, or are you voting for inflation and high gas prices and border crisis. I mean, really, these are the two sides.
And I think there's such a stark contrast that's really opened the eyes of a lot of Americans that
Yeah,
it's irrefutable.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I know there are so many other issues we can discuss. There's a lot of work to be done going forward, and
Yeah.
yeah, I wish you all the best in your primary.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've done a great job so far representing the people in your
Thank
district.
you. Thank you. And I've literally been out knocking doors since April 15th. So I think that, should create a good result. Plus, again, I've built a relationship with the people that I serve. So it's a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else you want to add? Any issues that we didn't cover that you want to mention, or if not, then how can people get in touch with you if somebody wants to volunteer or?
Well, first of all, I would say you better vote or else to anyone watching.
Sure.
But people that want to watch my campaign can go to my website. It's my last name, Dittrich, for the number four, wi.com.
Okay.
Dietrich4wisconsin.com. And I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and X.
Okay.
So people can watch me there and see. I really try to keep people updated on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I see your updates on Facebook that you're out doing campaign events. So thank you so much for sharing your website and how people can get in touch with you.
yes,
It's been a
yes.
pleasure having this conversation, and yeah,
Yeah, you and I are usually like at big events and we don't get to talk like this. So this is a treat.
yeah, no, I enjoyed this. I know when we're at those big events, the conventions and the big picnics. I mean, you know how things are. We're always like we go from talking to one person to the next,
Yes,
and
yes,
yeah,
yes,
I like those
yes.
events.
I
It's
do too.
energizing. Yeah,
I
yeah.
do too, but it can be like your company picnic or your wedding or anything where you're like, "Oh, I just wish there was more time to talk to all the people I knew there." So,
I know, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person at an event soon. I know there'll be a lot of events between now and November, so
you
I look
bet.
forward to seeing you in person. So, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Mine as well. Thanks, Tausif.
Thank you. Wish you all the best, and have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.